Thank you for joining us in this segment of Another View with Amarachi. Today I have Stephanie Taylor with me from the Regina Transition House. Welcome, Stephanie. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Amarachi.
Okay, so talking about the Regina Transition House, what is that and who do you serve?
So Regina Transition House is a women's shelter, specifically for women and their children who are leaving situations of violence and abuse. We also offer outreach programming and emergency outreach services. So if someone calls and they're not able to get into the shelter, or they may not need to come into shelter, but they need some sort of information or assistance, they can get that without needing to come into shelter through our emergency outreach services. And our outreach program is there for women after they've been in the shelter and leave, to support them to maintain independence in the community for 6 to 12 months after they've left.
Oh, this is really awesome. Yeah, I had no idea this is how much it goes and that. Okay, so domestic violence among new immigrants, family is one issue that we hope to highlight on the show. It's never overemphasized, I would say, because it's something that's ongoing. And knowing the African community is still something that most women that are going through it don't really come out to say this is what they are suffering or this is what they are going through. So maybe because they don't know how to assess the facility. So how can people who need these services assess this facility?
So anyone can call us on our crisis line. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week crisis line. There's always someone waiting. Anyone can call and even just ask about what to expect from a shelter like ours. Ask if we have space. Ask if they just want information and support about intimate partner violence. And or get referrals to other services in the community if they're really not ready to come into shelter.
Oh, okay.
And if someone calls our crisis line, and sometimes there might be a language barrier with the immigrant community, we do have access to a translation service to help us work with women whose language is not, whose first language is not English. And to assess maybe what their needs are, particularly if they're going to come into shelter and when they arrive. We can help translate, and when we go through the basic intake questions and stuff for them, and make sure it's a good fit for them, that they're comfortable.
So what do you have to say to women who are actually in an abusive relationship? Like I said, the stigma of having to say, I am in this kind of a relationship. It's not really easy to speak up and seek for help, but we're in a society where we have facilities. People are actually working to ensure you're safe. You're being, taken out from that very difficult situation. What do you say to people who still have that fear to talk to somebody or actually take a leap of faith to move out? What advice do you have to those that are still, in silence?
It is really scary, I think, for anyone to come forward and say, I think what I'm experiencing is intimate partner violence. I'm being mistreated. And I think it's especially scary, perhaps, for some immigrant women who might feel more isolated when they're newcomers to our community. And I think often it's scary to come out if your support network is only the community of people with whom you identify and are close with, and you may not want them to know what you're going through.
Even if you tell them, some of them discourage you because it's not our culture, I would say. Not to say people don't speak up, but it's not something that we are really, really exposed to, having to speak up about stuff like that.
And I think, like I said, I think it's scary for anyone, and it's just important for them to know, for anyone to know, that if they do reach out, if they're able to find a way to reach out, it doesn't necessarily mean they have to take the big leap and leave right away. It could mean they just need to get some information and support first, and then they can think about it and think about a plan. Come up with a plan. We can help people make plans to leave gradually. and help them build a safety plan so that when they are ready to leave, if they choose to, that there's a plan in place for everyone to get out safely, and then they can reestablish connections with those who are safe for them in their community once they're out.
Oh, I think I really like the word, move out safely, because it's not easy. Sometimes it could actually be chaotic to move out, from situations like that. It could actually cost a life too. So
exactly.
Moving out safely, I think I really love the word. So I'm really happy we're really talking about this. Some of the new immigrants are actually looking to volunteer, so stuff like this. So how do people volunteer to the Regina Transition House?
We do have a volunteer program, and our shelter coordinator, who recruits and trains volunteers, there's like an orientation. Orientation is provided to all volunteers. And basically, so if they just call our shelter's business line and ask to speak to the shelter coordinator, they'll be put in touch with the person who would help them through, it's like a brief application process. We do require like criminal record check, and we keep them on a list of active volunteers. Typically, we need volunteers for our children's programming, to help with the children on our outreach group nights. When there's programming offered for the adult women and for the children and teens actually now too.
Okay.
And we need volunteers to help run those programs. Lately, our programs have been virtual again in the last couple months, but we're hoping to soon move back to distanced, face-to-face programming. And other ways that volunteers help us out are around the shelter. So we often need assistance with like maintenance projects at the house, in the yard, those sorts of activities, helping with the kitchen stuff. So helping prepare meals, do baking, those sorts of things. So
lastly, how can people donate? I know like it's all over the news, like the charities, organizations have been affected by the pandemic so badly. So how can people still reach out and donate to this cause? Yeah,
we're still very much in like a situation where there's a lot of additional costs due to the pandemic that we did not have before. And so donations are still very important. They're always important because a lot of our programming, our extra programming, like the outreach groups and stuff, are not necessarily fully supported by funding. So we can only do our extra programming with donations, and people can do so by going to our website. And so it's just reginatransitionhouse.ca, and we are connected with Canada Helps, and there's just a way to click and go online and donate. You can also call the business line and speak with our office manager to make a donation. That's in a way that's most comfortable for you. So
is it just money donations, or we can actually bring in staff clothes?
We also
stuff?
So we also take clothing for women and children, and household items to help women get established when they leave the shelter, because they often come with nothing.
Makes sense.
We can't take large household items, but we can connect people to large household items. But like things like kitchen items in particular are important to help someone starting out again.
Exactly.
And children's toys, those sorts of things. Diapers, formula, things for infants.
Also, any kind of food at all. Oh, okay, that's good to know. Thank you so much for staying with us on this segment of Another View with Amarachi. I hope you learned one or two things. If you were looking for safety as a new immigrant, for women and your kids, please contact the Regina Transition House and seek help. Like she said, you don't have to stand up and just hop out. There's always a plan to help you go to safety.